What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And today I'm going to talk about the Knicks. After Jalen Brunson goes down with an ankle injury, he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. I just want to talk about the importance of Jalen being out for 2 weeks, potentially more with that ankle injury. And I also want to talk about what Mitchell Robinson has done since returning from his injury. I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Got the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
All right, getting into the episode, and I'm going to start with Jalen. I think I'm going to spend the majority of the episode on Jalen Brunson and his injured ankle. So we know there's no broken ankle. Chris Haynes reported that there's hope that it's just a sprained ankle. Ian Begley reported earlier today that he does not know the severity of the injury. And all of this worries me. All of this worries me because nobody knows anything. And when nobody knows anything, it's usually not a good sign. I mean, last year with OG Anunoby, it felt like we got no reports about his elbow until he was getting really close to returning. There has been no certainty with this injury from Jalen, and it sucks. It sucks that he had to go down in overtime against the Lakers on a West Coast game, on a West Coast swing, where that game could have been ended in regulation. I mean, Josh Hart, and I'm not blaming the injury on Josh Hart, but he took a dribble with 0.6 seconds remaining and started his shot motion, started going up for his potential game-winning shot after the buzzer had sounded. So for me, maybe he misses that shot even if he does get it off on time. But the fact of the matter is, Jalen got hurt in a game that went to overtime that really didn't need to go to overtime. And Jalen is not only the leader on the court, with his skills, his coachability, his adaptability, his versatility, but he's also the emotional leader off the court, in the locker room. He's the leading voice. I think Jalen Brunson going down is more impactful than Karl-Anthony Towns going down. Why, yes, Karl-Anthony Towns might be the better player, and if you go on NBA.com, he'll be higher ranked in the MVP ladder. Jalen Brunson does more stuff mentally, and he's the coach on the court. He's the leader. Karl-Anthony Towns is not that. Karl-Anthony Towns is a great basketball player. Some would even say tremendous. He's an all-star starter. He's a perennial all-star. And he's a great offensive talent. There's no way around that. But Jalen Brunson does so much more that doesn't get talked about. He is the clear-cut leader of this team. He is the guy in the locker room. If there's going to be a players-only meeting held, Jalen Brunson is holding that meeting. It's not Karl-Anthony Towns. It's not Josh Hart. It's not Mikal Bridges. It is Jalen Brunson. He took a pay cut to stay in New York. Jalen Brunson is the captain of this team. El Capitan. That's what he's supposed to do. And if he's not doing that, then that's a problem. But when he's not on the court, he doesn't have the ability to do that. And I get he'll probably be around the team a little bit. He's not one of those guys where when he's injured, he's just going to be sitting at home the whole time and he won't be in the facility rehabbing and on the bench at games is what I was getting at. Because with Mitch, and I'm not saying Mitch has to be one of these guys, I'm saying because Jalen is the leader of this team, like I've mentioned about 55 times already in this episode. Jalen is the guy that he will be. He's a stand-up guy. He'll be in the locker room. He'll be on the bench during games. I would have to guess. At least at home games if he doesn't want to go on the road. I get it. It's not that big of a deal. But the stuff that really worries me is the on-the-court stuff. Jalen Brunson, this team without Jalen Brunson is not good enough to even be a 3 seed. Like, that's the thing about Jalen. If he wasn't on this team, the Knicks would be trash. They would be like the 14th seed. Maybe not 14th. That seems a little bit extreme. But they certainly wouldn't be the 3, and they certainly would be a play-in team at best. Karl Anthony Towns is not going to carry a team on his own. He's not good enough to put a team on his back and win basketball games for his team. No, he's not. Let me correct that. He's good enough to win basketball games. He's not good enough to be the sole scorer, the sole star on a team, and bring that team to the playoffs. So for Jalen Brunson, and the Knicks more so, these next 2 weeks are going to be pivotal. Because what if Jalen does go down in the playoffs? I mean, we saw with his hand last in Game 7 against the Pacers. Yes, it was in the second half of a Game 7, the last game of the Knicks season. But what if that broken hand came in Game 1 of that series? Or what if it came in Game 3? The Knicks would have been terrible. They would have gotten swept. Flat out. If Jalen Brunson wasn't on the Knicks last year especially, this year I think they would be able to put up a fight against the Pacers and against the Bucks. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to get enough to beat the Celtics. They're not good enough to beat the Cavs. And they're not good enough to beat the Thunder. So if they match up with the Cavs or Celtics in the second round, it's wraps. The season's done. Pack it up, boys. It was an okay run. Let's reload, let's stack the deck again, and let's go at it next year. Because the Knicks aren't winning the NBA Finals this year. If you still believe the Knicks are winning the NBA Finals this year, you are delusional. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. They're not good enough to beat these teams. There's a reason they are 0-7. If they were 2-5, 3-4, then yeah, maybe I give them a puncher's chance. They are 0-7. 0-7. I don't know how many more ways I could say it, but they suck against good teams. I mean, they're under 500 against over 500 teams, and for the most part, they've just beaten up on bad teams. And I get it. You can only play who's in front of you. You can't change the schedule. But at the end of the day, you should be winning more games. If you want to consider yourself NBA Finals contenders, if you want to consider yourself a top 3 team in this league, you have to go out and beat the teams that people are saying are better than you. Beat the teams that have better record than you. I get it. You swept the Nuggets. You own the Nuggets. I think you swept the Rockets. Might have swept the Grizzlies. They beat up on some good Western Conference teams. But to get to the Western Conference teams, you're going to have to beat all the Eastern Conference teams in the playoffs. And that's just not happening. Flat out, it's not happening. I wish it did, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be happy if it does. But as of right now, on March 7th, it's not happening. Plain and simple. Signed and sealed. The Knicks are going to be another second-round exit. And the Eastern Conference Finals, Jalen Brunson will still not have seen one in his career with the Knicks, which will be his 3rd season here in New York. I mean, the first year, it was fun. They won a playoff series. That was great. I didn't really expect anything more. I thought they could have won because it was the Heat and they weren't that good. But, Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin did their thing. They kind of destroyed the Knicks. The Knicks took them to 6 games, but it was whatever. Last year, the Knicks, I thought they could have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. They absolutely should have. And if they have a fully healthy roster, if they had a fully healthy roster last year, I still believe they would have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals with a chance to win. They would have given the Celtics a run for their money last year. I don't know if they would have won, but I know that they would have fought and they would have took the Celtics to at least 6 games without a doubt. This year's team, they don't have the fight. They don't have the grit. They don't have that mentality that we're going to go out here night in and night out in the regular season on a random Tuesday night when we're playing the Pistons. That game still sticks out to me from last year. The Knicks were playing the Pistons on a random weeknight. They went out and they played a scrappy game and they beat a Pistons team by like 3 points that they should have beaten by 20. But the point is, they were down and they still fought in a regular season game where they could have punted and said, oh, it's the Pistons, it's whatever. Maybe Jalen takes a night off. Maybe Dante doesn't play. But no, they went out and fought in that game, and they went out and won on a crazy play. A Josh Ann won at the end. Very physical. Dante was diving on the floor at Azar Thompson. And this team just doesn't have that. If you were going to have a trio of Nova Knicks, you had the right combination last year. Because the one that we have right now with Mikal, Jalen, and Josh, it's not doing the thing. It's not moving the needle. I miss Dante DiVincenzo. He was a perfect fit for this team. And if he wasn't injured, I would have been very interested in bringing him back at the trade deadline. But they didn't. And like I said, the fact of the matter is the Knicks are not winning the NBA Finals or even going to the Eastern Conference Finals this season. But this isn't the only year of this window. This is the second year. You have this year, which I don't think they're going to do it. You have next year and the year after that at minimum. Who knows? Maybe they're able to swing a trade, sign a free agent that extends this window another year or two. But as of right now, I don't think they have that luxury. I don't think they have the ability to extend this window more than 5 years at max. Because once Mikal needs to get paid, once Josh needs to get paid, once Kat needs to get paid, and Jalen's going to be here for it'll be this year and one more from his original contract, and then the next one. So he's still got like 5 years left. So once his deal is up, that's really the max that the championship window can extend, because they're going to have to give him like a $400 or $500 million contract at that point if he keeps playing at this rate. But Mikal Bridges, on the other hand, he's going to get a bag of peanuts and a can of Sprite. That's all he's getting. If I'm the GM, at least, he hasn't been good at all. He hasn't been as good as I hoped on defense. He obviously hasn't been able to shoot the ball as well, and he takes some terrible shots. He is one of the most confusing players, in my opinion, because he'll score 20, 25 points on any given night, right? He's only done it a couple times this year. I was looking for it to happen more. But then he'll also have like a 6-6-3 night, and you're like, what am I watching? This guy is taking some Dick Barnett, fall away baby, mid-range jump shots that are just head-scratching. There's no reason for him to be taking some of these shots, and it's not helping the team win. He is not moving the needle. When OG Anunoby got traded to New York, he moved the needle. There's a reason the Knicks were unstoppable in January of last year, and when he went down, they were not as good. They were still a very good team because Jalen Brunson was dropping near 40 points a game. But when OG Anunoby went down, they were closer to a 500 team. They had never lost back-to-back games with OG Anunoby till multiple weeks into this season. There was a reason he was breaking plus-minus records all of last season, because he moves the needle. And Mikal Bridges has not moved the needle. This game against the Lakers that the Knicks just played, the 2024 team, so last year's team, surpassed them in net rating, meaning the Knicks of last year were better than the Knicks of this year. My point is proved. This team is not as good. This team is not as dominant, and this team will not be as dominant until they take Mikal Bridges out of this starting lineup. Yes, I said it. Mikal Bridges should be benched. We saw that Deuce McBride is not scared of the big moment against Memphis. He's been doing it his whole career. Every time he's been placed in an uncomfortable situation, he has performed. He has been able to shoot. He's made athletic plays, and most importantly, he sat down and played some good defense. That's what the Knicks need. They just need a 3-and-D guy. And that's not what Mikal Bridges has proved. He has not been that guy. And Mikal, go to the bench, perform, prove yourself, and then I'll put you back in the starting lineup. But right now, I want Deuce McBride there. And I know Deuce will probably start. He'll definitely start until Jalen returns. But even after that, if he proves himself, I want him in the starting lineup. The problem would be the size. Because then your backcourt is Jalen and Deuce. Both guys are under 6'2". Then you have Josh Hart, 6'4", playing the small forward position. But hey, Josh Hart has been making his size a non-factor throughout his entire tenure in New York. So I trust that he can do it. I trust that OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns will be able to pick up the slack on defense and use their size to their advantage and really lock down the paint. That's the other thing. Cat gets drawn away from the paint way too easily. I always see him outside the three-point line trying to guard, trying to get some shots on offense. And I get he's a three-point shooter. He shoots the ball exceptionally well from three-point range. But at some point, it's got to be like, you got to get in the paint. You got to play like a vintage big man. You can't just shoot threes. That's not going to work. and his size hasn't been as effective. I think he can use his size more, which he hasn't done. And even if you don't put Deuce in the starting lineup, you could put Mitch. If Deuce isn't working, just implement Mitch into the starting lineup. Then you have a lot of size. Then you have two 7-footers and a 6'8", 6'9" guy in OG Anunoby to go along with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, who are two very good players. Jalen all-star starter. Josh, you know the whole drill. He's a Swiss Army knife. He does the whole thing. But now let me get to Mitchell Robinson, as I just mentioned him, that he could be in the starting lineup. I'm a little bit confused on what I've seen from him so far. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is the Mitch we've seen. I mean, he was a plus 17 in the Memphis game at one point of the game while the Knicks were losing. That's something that's hard to do. But at other times, he wasn't as good in the Miami Heat game. And for Mitch, I think it's going to be a matter of how much time does it take for him to get his legs back under him? How much time does it take for him to be the blockness monster at 100%, that enforcer, that interior defender that the Knicks were looking for? He's sitting out his first game since returning with ankle injury management tonight against the Clippers, rather. I'm sorry. They play the Warriors next Saturday, I believe, a part of this road trip that they're on. I think it's like a 12-day road trip or something. It's March. No, it's going to be more than that. I know it goes to either the March 15th or March 17th, but that's besides the point. Mitchell Robinson is back. Mitchell Robinson is not in his peak form yet. Mitchell Robinson is going to need time to get his legs under him. He's going to need time for his season to evolve. And I think there is some kind of minutes restriction on him right now based how Tibbs was playing him. But I also do think he should be in some starting lineups. And here's the thing. I'm going to get back to what I was saying about the starting lineups for just 1 second. If you're playing a team with a lot of size, yeah, put Mitch in the lineup and take Mikal out. If you're playing a team that's smaller, more guard heavy, put Deuce in the starting lineup, take Mikal out. The point is, I don't want Mikal Bridges in the lineup. And then with that open position, you swap between Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson. One plays the 2, one plays the 4. Cat would slide to the 4, Mitch would go to the 5, and Deuce would go to the 2, Josh would go to the 3. In that situation, almost like a platoon, but for basketball instead of baseball. If you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I do like the idea of Mitch in the starting lineup. And the last thing I wanted to say, I want to hit on the defensive lineup of Mitchell Robinson, Deuce McBride, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges. I'm not going to do the whole, the Martians have the death beam pointed at you. Who do you want? But I do want that lineup. That lineup is so solid defensively. If they need one to stop and at the end of a game, I want that lineup out there. And I have full confidence that they are going to get that stop. I mean, we saw it in Memphis. They needed a stop. Mikal Bridges came up clutch, getting a stop on Ja Morant. I swear, he has elastic arms, bro. His arms move in ways that I've never seen before. It is so weird what he was blocking Vucevic in the Bulls game. I don't know how he got his arms up to the rim. He's like 6'5", 6'6", maybe. He's got a crazy wingspan. He blocked Nikola Vucevic to send that game to overtime, and he also got a clutch defensive stop on Ja Morant, one of the fastest players in the league, barreling towards the basket. So in clutch situations, Mikal has showed up. On the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side, it's a different story. But that lineup that I just mentioned with Mitch and Deuce, the defensive lineup, so solid, so sound, so defensively driven, and I love it. I think Tibbs should employ that lineup more. I think that's a lineup if you want to go on a run to end the half, because it does have some offense in not Karl-Anthony Towns, in Deuce McBride, in OG Anunoby. Those are guys, you have a lot of three-point shooting in that lineup, and then you also have a slasher like Josh who could get to the rim, and Deuce can play the point guard too, throw some lobs to Mitchell Robinson. There's so much flexibility in that lineup, and I think we're going to see it more before Jalen comes back. I just want to see what Tibbs does with his rotations until Jalen gets back. I think that's definitely an option they could use, and one that will be very good and very impactful. The other lineup I want to see is something to deal with either Tyler Kolek or Paco Mdadier, because these are guys that I think can still help the team even as we get into the latter part of the year. but Tibbs just refuses to play them. I don't know what it is. Why? Just play him. Maybe Jalen opens the door for Kolek. I think that's the more likely option. And I would like to see what he could do with Josh Hart. A Josh Hart, Tyler Kolek backcourt, I don't mind it. We'll see. I'm worried about the Jalen injury, though. I think it has potential to be a nagging injury. And now I want the Knicks to handle it. I want them to be cautious. And I want them to make sure that Jalen Brunson is all the way back. Because they're not going to win the NBA Finals. I don't want this to be one of those injuries where it's nagging into next year, or he has to get a surgery in the offseason, which very well might happen, but that carries into next season, almost like we saw with Julius Randle either last year or 2 years ago, where he had a brutal start to the year. But we'll see what happens with the Knicks. I mean, I'm not hanging my hat on a NBA Finals appearance or win. I don't think they're good enough this year, but I'm just worried about Jalen Brunson's injury. I'm hoping that it's nothing too serious and he'll be back in 2 to 3 weeks, but we'll see, man. All right, that's going to do it for the episode. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, following, commenting, liking, sharing. I really appreciate it. Also, make sure you leave me a voicemail with your sports questions or takes at 848-305-8073. That's 848-305-8073. Also, check out my socials, all linked in the description below. Instagram, TikTok, even my YouTube shorts. I'm posting a lot of content there recently. And most importantly, make sure you keep it locked with the Sports Pod.